The power of solitude. In today's world, solitude is often viewed as something to be avoided at all costs. Many people fear being alone, associating it with feelings of sadness or loneliness. However, according to Buddhist teachings, solitude is not something to fear. In fact, it is the path to true happiness and understanding of oneself. By embracing solitude, we allow ourselves to confront our inner thoughts, fears, and desires. This is a journey that leads to personal growth and deeper connections with others. Let us explore the profound wisdom of solitude through a story from ancient India, where a Buddhist monk lived a life of quiet contemplation, teaching us the true meaning of being alone. The story of Ananda, a life of solitude. In a small village on the outskirts of ancient India, there lived a monk named Ananda. He was not always a monk. In his youth, he had been born into a wealthy family, surrounded by comfort and luxury. Yet, despite his material wealth, Ananda felt an overwhelming emptiness. He realized that external possessions could never fill the void within. Feeling lost and unfulfilled, he decided to leave behind his life of wealth and seek deeper meaning through the teachings of Buddha. Ananda built a simple hut on a quiet hill, far from the bustling village. His dwelling was modest, no luxuries, only the essentials. Yet he found peace in this simplicity. He lived his days in solitude, focusing on his meditation and inner peace. The villagers who lived their lives in constant motion found his lifestyle intriguing. They wondered why Ananda had chosen to live alone, far away from his family and friends. How could anyone be content in solitude? The question of solitude, is it a curse or a blessing? One day, during the village's annual festival, Ananda ventured down to the crowded square. The village was alive with music, laughter, and celebration. The villagers, who were used to Ananda's quiet existence, couldn't help but notice his calm presence among the noise. A curious villager, feeling brave, approached Ananda and asked, "Why do you live alone, far away from all the joy and companionship of the village? Why don't you join us in our celebrations?" Ananda smiled gently and replied, "To me, solitude is not suffering. It is the place where I can truly be free, free from the distractions of the world. It is in solitude that I can hear my own heart and understand my true desires." What is the true meaning behind your laughter and festivities? Have you ever stopped to listen to your inner voice? The villager was taken aback by Ananda's question. The idea that solitude could bring freedom was foreign to him. He, like most people, believed that happiness could only be found in the company of others, in the noise and activity of life. But Ananda's words planted a seed of curiosity in his mind. Facing the inner voice, the true power of solitude. Ananda invited a few of the villagers to visit his humble dwelling and experience solitude for themselves. Reluctantly, they agreed. At first, the villagers felt uncomfortable. The silence was deafening. In the village, they were used to the constant buzz of activity, chatter, music, and the hustle and bustle of everyday life. But here, in Ananda's simple hut, there was nothing but silence and their own thoughts. Ananda told them, "In this quiet space, listen to the voice inside you. The fears, the desires, the anxieties that usually go unnoticed in the noise of daily life. This is the true conversation you need to have. Only in silence can you truly face these emotions and understand them." At first, the villagers were uneasy. They felt restless and impatient, their minds racing with thoughts of returning to the village. But slowly something changed. The longer they sat in silence, the more they began to hear their own inner voices. One villager, who had always been angry at others, realized that his anger came from his own unresolved issues. Another villager understood that she had been living her life according to the expectations of others, not truly following her own desires. Ananda smiled and said, solitude is not a place of despair. It is a place of healing, a space where you can truly understand yourself and find peace. When you face your fears and desires in solitude, you become free from their control. The healing power of solitude. As the days passed, the villagers began to notice changes within themselves. The anger that once consumed them began to dissipate, and their hearts felt lighter. They started to realize that much of their suffering had come from their own attachments to other people's opinions, to material things, to their past pains. One villager admitted, "In solitude, I realized that I had been clinging to the past, holding on to old wounds. Now I understand that to be free, I must let go." Another villager shared, "I've spent my life seeking approval from others. But in this silence, I've learned that I don't need anyone's approval but my own." Ananda nodded and said, "Solitude has shown you the truth about yourselves. The fear of being alone is not the real problem. The real issue is the fear of confronting your inner truth. When you face your true feelings, you unlock the freedom to live authentically." The wisdom of embracing solitude. The villagers, once fearful of loneliness, began to understand its true value. Solitude was not about being isolated. It was about reconnecting with oneself. It was the key to breaking free from the distractions and attachments of the world and discovering what truly mattered. Through their time spent in solitude, they found a deeper connection not only with themselves but also with each other. They learned that by facing their own truths, they could relate to others more honestly and deeply. Their relationships became more meaningful as they no longer relied on others to fill their inner voids. Ananda's teaching spread throughout the village. The villagers began to gather regularly for silent gatherings, where they would sit in stillness and reflect on their inner lives. These gatherings brought a sense of peace and unity that had never been there before. They had discovered the power of solitude and the peace it brought. The legacy of solitude, a path to true happiness. As time passed, the villagers no longer feared solitude. They saw it as a necessary part of their spiritual and emotional growth. They understood that to live fully, they must first learn to be at peace with themselves. Ananda's teachings had transformed their lives, and they passed this wisdom on to future generations. Solitude became not a place of loneliness, but a sanctuary for self-discovery, healing, and growth. The villagers learned that true happiness comes not from the outside world, but from within. When we learn to embrace solitude, we come to understand our true selves and our true desires. Only then can we live authentically and build meaningful relationships with others. Conclusion: embracing solitude for true freedom. The story of Ananda teaches us that loneliness is not something to be feared, but rather something to be embraced. Solitude allows us to listen to our inner voices, confront our fears, and let go of attachments. It is in solitude that we find true freedom. Freedom from external expectations and the internal noise that keeps us from living authentically. By embracing solitude, we come to understand ourselves at a deeper level, which leads to a more fulfilling and peaceful life. We can learn to face our fears and desires without running away from them. And in doing so, we find a peace that can never be taken away, no matter what is happening in the world around us. So, let us not fear solitude, but instead embrace it. For in its quiet, we may find the greatest wisdom and happiness of all. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you, too, can find peace and joy in the solitude of your own heart.